the next generation doesn't care about hyper fidelity.
Yeah.
Right. Like Roblox is still hanging out with their friends. Minecraft, you go to a concert in Minecraft that's 8-bit blocks. The 10-year-old isn't saying, ooh, I didn't feel like that was a real experience.
I've cried during Disney movies, animation. Like, that's obviously not real, but yeah, it's how you connect.
And you did the same thing in black and white TV.
For sure.
Or even a radio show. If it's really good, it's really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's why we need more non-tech people, more storytellers,
Yeah.
more people that understand the brain in our space.
Hello, I'm Matt Osterman, and welcome to Propellant, Minnesota. Today we're diving into the world of virtual reality and spatial computing with Amir Berenjian, the co-founder, CEO, and visionary behind REM5, a group of immersive technology companies focused on the AR and VR space. We'll explore his journey, the philosophy and evolution of immersive technology, and the impact of VR on various industries, including education, medicine, and storytelling. Amir also shares insights into the future of AR/VR and his advice for aspiring innovators. Amir was also first in line to get his hands on the new Apple Vision Pro, and he gives us his initial impressions and contrasts it with the more established MetaQuest 3 headset. He has a ton of knowledge and opinions, which led to what I think was an incredibly enlightening show. Please enjoy my conversation with Amir Berenjian. You came from a finance background, didn't you?
Yeah, so my background, like growing up, I was big into technology. I was, in high school in the 80s and 90s, websites like HTML, making websites, LimeWire, Napster, all that goodness was kind of like I was prime age for all of that stuff. In high school, never did really any business. I was all like calc, physics, making games on my TI-85 calculator. Went to college for computer science at the University of Minnesota. All of my friends that were in the business school program were having way more fun than I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just getting beat up in IT. And so for all of the wrong reasons, moved over into business and ended up with a degree in corporate finance, and then went into investment banking for a little over a decade.
Yeah, we have a very similar background, I think, because I was born in 78, so didn't have computers until late 80s probably. But then I had my TI-85. I'd spend more time programming and how to cheat on my math classes than I would actually learning the formulas. It was crazy. But yeah, I did HTML in the 90s. And then I went to the U as well and started with computer sci, but then realized I hated math, which is like the majority of it. So then I went into, communication, which was, much better suited for my skill set and attention level, I think. But
there you go.
Yeah. So, so you did the corporate thing for a while. What led you into the AR, VR? What was the light bulb moment?
Yeah. I mean, personally, I always was tinkering. I didn't lose the underlying passion for tinkering with technology and innovation. And had a good, I think like most, you have an idea of what you want to do while you're in college. You come out, you do it. It's fun. You learn a lot, but it's hard to step back and say, okay, what do I really want to do when I grow up now that I've somewhat learned how the real world works? Because you don't really learn that at college.
No.
But it got to a point where I was 30 years old. I'd been in banking for 11, 12 years at that point. In that world, you start with internships and you're kind of all in. You sell your soul early and then you just ride the wave. Mm-hmm. And had a couple things happen. One was able to try the latest generation of headsets in 2016. Because VR, AR, spatial computing, immersive technology, whatever you want to call it, is not a new concept by any means, as you know. There's literature going back to, even we joke, like the stereoscope. If you remember, like you put the card into the wooden box thing, like a older version of a Viewmaster.
Yep.
Like that concept is from like 1905.
Yep.
So that construct isn't new. It's just finally the computing power caught up to the aspirations of what it could be. Facebook bought Oculus in 2014 for $2.5 billion. Mm-hmm. and launched their first product in 2016. HTC launched their first product in 2016. So 2016, I had an opportunity to try modern VR. Had a lot of problems, still clunky, big, required a massive computer. But it was still a holy shit moment, thinking through what does this look like extrapolated out 5 years, 10 years, 100 years from now.
If you look at any other technology curve, you can kind of see it coming, right?
100%. And it's really hard to unsee how it is the future of how humans interact with technology and even AI, right? As we bring that into the discussion, mainstream discussion as we sit here today. So I kind of caught the bug. I was like, oh my gosh, this is coming. It's coming fast. It feels like it's coming fast, even though it's not. How can I get into this space? And so at the time, I had been spending a lot of time working with, in investment banking, working with multi-unit businesses. So like Core Power Yoga or Mills Fleet Farm were all clients of mine. So I kind of understood a four-wall box.
Yep.
And then as I dug into the immersive tech space, I realized there was a massive problem with the last mile of distribution. This tech is magical. I can sit here and talk to you about it all day long, but until you try it, you're going to think I'm a crazy person. And so how do we bridge that gap? And so that's where REM5's first business came from. We have an 8,000 square foot facility based in St. Louis Park that was really focused on bridging that accessibility gap. If you're a school and you want to deploy this technology, it's the magic school bus, right? How do we take kids to Mars or a refugee camp in Africa or ride along inside of a blood cell through the human body? Schools weren't set up to do that. So let's be the outsourced computer lab for a target who should be using this for training. You also don't want to own a bunch of this hardware. The software market's fragmented. How do we put this on a silver platter for these corporate clients? We can do that at the same space as well. So that's kind of combined with my business acumen and experience on a four-wall box kind of lent itself well to this VR as a service business within a brick and mortar. And then the goal all along was do that, learn from the market, understand what people are liking, what they're not liking, where is there demand for content that doesn't exist, and then start building it. So then we started REM5 Studios, which is a separate entity that's kind of our creative agency and production house. So we kind of have these two arms as we sit here today. And that was in 2018 that we started all of this. Fast forward to today, 2024, it's wild to kind of reflect on it because our world has evolved a lot, but in a lot of respects, it hasn't evolved. I was just in New York last week with a colleague with a really amazing project that we're working on right now with the Gates Foundation, demoing VR with UN Foundation, UNICEF, Rotary International, a lot of these really amazing people doing amazing work. And most people hadn't done modern VR. They had maybe done a cardboard with a phone 5-6 years ago. And so we're still kind of at this point where experience level and actually having that magical feeling of trying one of these modern devices is still a fraction of a percent of people.
Why is that? It feels like we've reached a level where everybody obviously is aware of it, but is it because it's kind of a personal device and it's not like, you bring it to the bar and you pass it around, like what's your take?
Yeah, that's one really good way to look at it is it's very personal and it's hard to share. It's hard to scale sharing that experience. It requires a missionary like me walking around with tons of backpacks full of stuff. So when I walk into a room, like, here, try this on. Yeah. Like literally last week in New York, I'm at the bar at night at dinner asking the bartender to put on the Vision Pro.
Funny.
Right. Yeah. Manager shot that one down in that case.
You can make any drink in the world with that thing on, probably, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. But it requires that because, well, that combined with, I also don't want to lean into that too hard because the players that have brought the hardware to where we are today, from call it 2016 to 2024, have not done a very good job marketing the product. They're not the best marketers of hardware. You know who is the best marketer of hardware on planet Earth? Is Apple. So that's why a lot of us, for better or for worse, regardless of what this device was or what it could do, their ability to position and humanize and extract emotion out of this product is they're the best in the world at.
Unparalleled.
And so that's why even their first commercial that they launched with the different superheroes putting the different goggles on was just a very like relatable thing versus a Meta, which we love them for the work that they've done and the investments they've made in the space over the last decade and will continue to make. But they've been very singular focused in terms of who they're marketing to. And that makes it very intimidating for the other 95% of people.
So you kind of got into it a little bit, but what's your state of the union in terms of where we're at with the technology now? Obviously, Vision Pro is now, a couple weeks from being released, so pretty new. Like, what's your take on that and how the Quest 3 stacks up against it, where they, kind of fall in comparison between each other?
Yeah, I don't think we have enough time today to unpack all of it, but I'd say at a really high level, the outlook for the industry for those who are drinking the Kool-Aid per se and have been for quite some time, that hasn't changed, right? Like if you're in the industry today and you were 5 years ago, you just have obsessively convinced yourself that this is the future of human computer interaction. Otherwise you wouldn't be in the space any
Probably
longer.
feel a little validated too, right?
Yeah, totally. And so I think that we're at I would say that 2016 was a big year for this technology. And I would view last Friday when the Vision Pro came out as really like day one of this next generation, this next chapter of immersive technology. I think that the hardware has finally caught up, like just in the last 12 months. Not the Apple headset, because I don't think that's a consumer device, but I think the Meta Quest 3 is the first headset that I feel really confident handing to you and everything working. And that sounds wild in a space that's had tens of billions of dollars invested in it for decades, but that's the fact of the matter. With a lot of our clients, we would still, if we were producing content, we would then also control that whole distribution channel and want to provide VR as a service, right? Because we knew there were so many things that would go wrong in the field. And then the tech becomes a distraction from the actual content and the purpose of it being there, which sucks. Yeah. It's like you put all this work into it. Yep. And instead of talking about the emotion of the experience, someone's talking about, like it reset when I was halfway through the experience or something silly like that. This headset now, the Quest 3 really, really does the trick, which is exciting. It's $500 headset, and it can do not as good, depending on what it is, but it's a pretty powerful headset as you look at a $3,500 Vision Pro headset. And so I think with Apple coming into the game, really not compromising on quality of the product, what they're doing that I think is really beautiful and elegant is, one, is they're repositioning the entire space, right? It's not VR, it's not AR, it's not metaverse, it's not Web3, it's not goggles, it's spatial computing, which is going to take a while for them to fully rebrand the space. But if anybody can do it, it's them. Yeah. Then the other thing that they're doing is they have started with very simple use cases, and they've been very purposeful. This is for entertainment, and this is for productivity. I don't think it's quite there yet on productivity, but for entertainment, it's awesome. It's great. And they have the partners at the table to, they can launch and have a 3D Mario Brother movie day one, which is pretty amazing, right? Incredible. And it's pretty compelling. And it works on airplanes too, which is also another killer.
That's like you posted about that, yeah.
Yeah, and the Quest 3 doesn't work on a plane.
Why is that?
Without getting too deep on the technical, it uses a couple different ways to track the space around you. Got it. And one of them is an accelerometer. Yeah. And so even if it can see the chair in front of you, you have your window shut and everything, it still loses tracking.
That makes
and
sense.
won't work.
Yeah.
But in addition to Apple being very focused on the use cases, they are not going too deep into the 3D interaction, which is like a very big step backwards from what most people have been doing on the Quest 3 for 5 years.
Right.
But they're doing that in a way, and this is me speaking, not them saying it publicly, they're doing that in a way that they can start to bring the entire iOS app developer ecosystem under their wing.
Yeah.
Right. And if you came out and it was like wild 3D interaction, that's like a whole new skill set to learn for developers.
Yep.
But if it's just, we have some 2D panels kind of floating around, they can start to breadcrumb people in.
That's like an iPad, but in front of you. Yeah.
Exactly. So while there's a lot of people shouting from the rooftop being the Quest 3 can do so much more and blah, 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 it's like, yeah, of course it can. But this is 100% surgical in terms of how they're doing this and rolling this out to not scare people away.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot to be learned about what interaction looks like in a 3D space. Just think about when we went from PC to mobile. It took a decade or more to just figure out what does UI, what does UX look like on mobile versus PC. And we're still at inning one in the 3D space on that. And so so it's a pretty exciting time. Costs have come down. I think the other thing that Apple is doing, and just Apple has the pull of, I'm coming off as an Apple fan person here, which I am. I'm very critical of the headset, by the way, but it is a big sense of validation in our industry and milestone, as we talked about earlier. But in wearing this thing out in public, you either get, oh my gosh, what are you doing in there? Can I see? Or people don't care. So they're starting to slowly normalize wearing this thing in public.
Yeah.
Now people, if I'm sitting in a coffee shop, people might be trying to not make eye contact with me because they don't want to look like they're staring at me. But for the most part, people are going along with their business and doing it. And because I think some people are concerned about that. I would never wear that in public. Why would I wear that? I would look so goofy. And but you also look around. I was at the mall last week with my kids. We were goofing around, and I was looking around, and everybody was sitting there on their phones.
Right.
If I would have told you that 20 years ago, even like, no way, I would be out at the mall on my phone.
This is just as messed up, right? Everyone doing this all the time, and that's become normalized. So yeah, I'm with you. Same thing will probably happen.
I think there's some really, really compelling use cases right now that aren't getting publicized because they're not sexy and they're not public, right? So you think about healthcare, you think about corporate training. There is billions going into that space and has been over the last 5 to 10 years. But the cool things to talk about are the at-home productivity, the gaming, those type of things. So I just want to be super clear that this isn't like, oh my gosh, we're starting this revolution. There's a lot of really powerful use cases and powerful ROI that's occurred over the last 5 to 10 years as well.
Yeah. Can we play a little game with use cases? Can I give you like an industry or category?
Yeah, let's do it.
And you can give me a good guess on what that might be. Healthcare.
Oh my gosh. From the doctor level, the training, think about being in college, being able to run reps on doing a type of surgery, going into a room and understanding what equipment is what and what role does it play. You can now democratize that experience, run through it as many times as possible, and you can collect unlimited user data and then put that into a feedback loop to customize the training. As good as it gets, right? It's like a no-brainer, right?
Yep.
Or you're a surgeon, you come in and I'm doing a certain nuanced type of knee surgery on you, right? I might be the best doctor in the world, but I maybe haven't done that surgery in a while. Why don't I hop in and do a quick run through right before? Sweet. Okay. What about on the patient side, right? I have anxiety, or I don't want to get a CT scan, or I'm getting a shot, right? And now I could escape to I could sit on the top of a mountain and meditate while I'm getting a shot, or I could go through exposure therapy of going through an experience, going into the room, go through the hospital experience, go through a couple CT scans.
Right.
Right. So those are just like I mean, it's almost like unlimited.
Yeah. Yeah, that was maybe the worst one to start with because it is incredibly promising. But we keep going. Education. I mean, another huge one.
Unlimited.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's one where like is personally pretty close to me because I was never like the fat part of the bell curve in education. And so back to like the doctor example, you can democratize experiences. You combine that with experiential learning theory, and you have yourself the most powerful learning tool that exists. Who's not a visual learner? Who's not an experiential learner? Whose brain doesn't respond to gamification, right? Like if you're human, you check yes to all three of those things.
Yep.
So then you literally apply that to everything.
Yeah.
Then AI enters the equation, and now you create this feedback loop for hyper-personalized education within those experiences. Because I believe that everybody, our young kids, can do Stanford MBA level case studies. There's no reason they don't have the gray matter to do that. It's just, it's not in their language right now, right? Like you weave that in through a kid's story in a way, or you gamify it in a way, they can learn the same damn concepts.
Yep.
Right. So it's profound, and the education system needs it too, like at this time. So like these worlds are starting to come together in a way that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
And then once we figure out, because the other area that I get really excited about is it can start to create equitable access to learning experiences as well. Now, the pushback there is this hardware is still expensive, right? But most parts of the world now have internet, which is wild to think about. Good internet. And so you start to combine that with this technology, and now that same 5-star or whatever top rated education is, you can now provide that to any kid in the world, theoretically.
Yeah. Okay. Travel.
Yeah, everything. You can go back to democratizing experiences. I mean, I would say that we're a ways away from being able to provide the same emotion and sense and smells. Like we have so many other senses besides visual and audio. And so, well, and you know this as a filmmaker, it's like there's a lot of input there, and I don't think we're going to be to the point in the very near future of where you could have that same feeling of being somewhere. But two things. One is for previewing and deciding where you want to go, planning, no brainer. And then the second one is creating equitable access, or for people that can't go, right? You monetarily might not be able to go to a lot of these places, or you might never want to actually go to the top of Mount Everest. That would require me doing that, but now you can do that in VR. And then the second piece there is the top of Mount Everest isn't maybe wheelchair accessible, right? So you can start to provide access to that too. So when you start to think about, like, I know there's a lot of people working on some interesting applications within senior healthcare. It's like, okay, you're at a senior home. Something as simple as going to a Timberwolves game downtown, not super accessible. Now we can bring that to them. Is it as good as the real thing? No. But if the alternative is not doing it at all, it's a pretty big leap forward.
Yeah, but you also might get courtside seats in VR, whereas most people can't afford that in real life. So the experience in some ways could be better. Like arguably watching NFL on TV is a better football watching experience than being in the stadium. You know, maybe worse in other ways, but, you know, you bring these new things and then you get the overlays with the stats and, you know,
100%. I was watching some golf yesterday, and on the Vision Pro, there's a PGA app. And I had it up on my TV, regular old TV. I have like a 10-year-old. Of all the things I have in my house, I have like a 12-year-old flat screen. Because it was just like, all right, we hit the point of diminishing returns at some point, and I have all this other stuff. So I had that up. I had a leaderboard that I just put up next to the TV. It was big, fully interactive by looking at and tapping on players, whatever. And then you could pull up a 3D model of the holes, pick the group, whether you want to do it live or go back and watch them hit their shots and follow the ball pass. And I could move the whole, I mean, it's like Tony Stark type stuff. And I was doing it yesterday in my living room with regular internet on a headset I bought at Mall of America.
That's insane. So with that simulated hole, was it like almost real time you saw the ball leaving, or was there a lag?
Yeah, so the app was a little clunky, brand new.
Yeah.
Right. But you could certainly, there were only certain holes
Sure.
that they had. It was 16, 17, and 18.
Yep.
For this particular course that you could go back and watch. And there was a lag to it being live, and then you could go back kind of and look at the other players. And it actually didn't have their exact ball flight. It just had their beginning point and their end point, and then would show the flight to it, right? So
Yeah,
not like
close enough,
perfect.
but
I don't
yeah.
want to oversell it.
Yeah.
But pretty amazing, right?
For
'Cause
being
when
out
you're
a week, right? Like that's insane.
and when you're watching this stuff on TV, you have no appreciation for the angles and the things that they had to overcome on that shot. And now you can see it all. It's crazy.
There'll probably be, another version where you get to do like flight path, where you're like, you're the ball, right? And you get to see where it travels. To your point of how difficult some of those shots are. Okay, last one. This one's near and dear to my heart, and we'll kick off another part of the conversation. But storytelling. How do you think AR and VR is going to push new boundaries there?
It is going to be a very big part of the future of storytelling. You know this better than I, but since written word on a, wall to radio to black and white TV to it's all about storytelling, right? And how do you immerse the user? How do you articulate the storyteller, what happened, or the storyteller's vision? How do you translate that into a form factor that you and you and you and whoever else can then see what you were seeing, if that's the intention, or their interpretation of what it is you're trying to say? At its core, this is the ultimate tool to do that, because you can, in the most literal sense, transport people to places and environments with sounds and visuals in a way that we've pieced together with all these other mediums and done an amazing job doing it. But now we've just kind of like blown the roof off, with the other added element of we still have a lot to figure out in terms of what the next generation of storytelling is, because now you can interact with the environment around you. You can be part of the story if you want to. You can be a fly on the wall. You can be in the story. You can impact the story. It can be there was the Netflix Bandersnatch was kind of a big deal in terms of there were decision trees.
Choose your own adventure. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you take that now and it's your head starts to hurt when you start to think about it.
Yeah.
And then with the other piece, almost kind of in relation to learning and development, because I think storytelling is like woven within all of this stuff, frankly, again, as you know. But like on the learning and development side, like I might be trying to tell you a story, but if I know enough about you and how you interpret things, the technology can now modify my story and tell it in a way that you'll understand the story that I'm trying to tell more effectively. That might be different than the next person, the next person, the next person. So it's like, that's where you start to get like really philosophical and deep on like the technology can actually work as a translator for storytelling in a way that no other tool has been able to do.
Yeah.
Which is like
100%. I with my experience, I tend to think these can be little empathy machines too. I've done a few experiments, narrative, but also, there's some doc stuff out there. But, when you have one of those on and there's another human across from you, and whether you're actually engaging with them or you're just, listening or viewing, there's a connection there that you don't get on a 2D screen. So it's almost like this hybrid between like live stage where there's real people up there and, the movie theater. But now, because you have some ability to kind of be immersed in the environment, it feels much more real. And if they're looking at camera, they're looking at you, which just opens up a whole new thing. Or on the doc side, to be filming something as it happens, and you can, really look around. Again, you can't interact in that sense, which would be another layer. But holy hell, like that is going to be pretty crazy when we start engaging some of our greatest storytellers, to build or to create or tell those stories in that environment.
Totally, 100%. A quick example of that, just because it's really timely right now. So the project we were showing last week was where we went over to Zambia in Africa and followed along a field team on a door-to-door polio immunization campaign over a 4-day period where they immunized 7 million kids in Zambia, literally going door to door through these neighborhoods. And we followed them with VR cameras, and now have been able to, like in New York, we're sitting in the boardroom of the UN Foundation with 15 headsets. And for those 12 minutes, those individuals were in Zambia.
Yeah.
Meeting those community-based volunteers, hearing their stories, seeing the visuals, like having that sense of presence. Is it as good as the real thing? Absolutely not.
Yeah, but yeah.
But we were able to scale and democratize that experience in a way that wouldn't have been possible, right? So for empathy building, right? Like that's kind of the Chris Milk gave a TED Talk in 2016, 15. That's like kind of an iconic TED Talk where he was quoted saying, VR is the ultimate empathy machine.
Oh, no kidding. All right.
Yeah.
I'll go track that
Which
down.
It's a pretty good one.
I have a 360 VR cam, and we did some experimenting with it. And your first instinct is to want to put that in the middle of the room, right? Because you can get the full 360, and it feels like everything is equal, I guess, in a way. But when you put the headset on and watch it, because you don't have your full faculties, because you're only dealing with, the headset, not necessarily the sound or whatever. There could be a saber-toothed tiger coming up behind you and you wouldn't know. There's a sense of unease. But when we moved the camera closer to a wall, you put the headset on and you felt more relaxed because you have some level of safety behind you. And I'm like, oh shit, there's something very vestigial and human about this. And it's fascinating to play around with it and see where that's going to go. So I'm sure you deal with that stuff all the time. Any thoughts?
Yeah, and that's where the opportunities and the challenges are in this next chapter as we redefine storytelling with these new mediums. Is there aren't, while I would say on one hand there are a lot of best practices that we have from producing experiences and putting them on a lot of people and visually seeing how people react and then collecting their feedback, like you just gain a good understanding of what are good things to do and what are not good things to do. But there is still a lot yet to be learned in this space, because the data, while we have a lot of data on the broad and the big picture, is we still have very little data, right? I mean, we put 100,000 people through VR. Yes, that's a lot of people, but it's really not at the same time. So yeah, and that's just for static, non-interactive immersive experiences.
Right.
As soon as you add interaction into the equation, the amount of variables increases
Infinite almost. Yeah.
Yes. And then like we've done projects in the past where we connected the user's heart rate right into the experience, right? So now you're maybe taking indirect cues from the user and adjusting the story based on that.
Yeah, the pace of the music could change based on the heart rate.
Everything.
And,
We can know your heart rate. We can know exactly where you're looking. We know the decisions you've made. We're taking all of this subtle feedback and adjusting the story accordingly. It gets complicated, gets really exciting at the same time, but also those are challenges that we're going to have to overcome as an industry.
What's your most controversial take in terms of the AR, VR, spatial world? Do you have anything spiky that you feel like?
Oh, man, yeah. I mean, you're asking somebody who is 100% certain that we will not be staring at our phones at some point in the future. And that's the lens I look at it through. And that's really uncomfortable for a lot of people to think about that way. Most of the people that are commenting on it have never tried modern technology, so I totally get, and I empathize with that, because it does not sound compelling without trying it firsthand. So and then there's also like really big picture, the philosophy around, or the concern around just humans' interwoven nature with technology, and is that good or bad for us as humans? So that's a much bigger, like, philosophical question. Is social media good or bad? Is the internet good or bad? Are there, with good comes bad, with bad comes good, typically?
Yep.
And so that's where I struggle, at least personally. I sleep at night knowing that this is actually, I believe, not in this form factor, but at some point, this is actually a way, at its simplest level, for you to leverage technology in a way that's helpful to you while staying present in the real world. Most people don't look at it that way. They look at it as another way to further disconnect from the real world.
Right.
And so, like, yesterday, we're driving to, where are we going? We're going out to dinner with my wife's family. And I'm kind of tinkering some fringe case use cases with this thing, because why not? Right? And we get in the car. She's like, hey, can you give me directions? I'm in the passenger seat. I'm navigating, right? And so I normally would have just pulled up my phone, and I would have pulled up the map, and I would have stared at my phone while we're driving, conversing, and my head would have been down.
Yep.
Again, super simple example. But instead, I put on the headset where I could see the road, I could see my wife, I could see everything around me, and I just put the map on the dashboard. Right? It's your classic heads-up display, like a lot of fancy cars have. Right? And so now my head is up, I'm navigating, I'm conversing, I'm more present in that scenario. And so, again, simple, weird use case, but
Little R2D2 there.
But you now extrapolate that out to life. Like we were talking before, you're at the mall, everyone's down at their phone. Like, you should be hanging out with your kids, enjoying your kids. You look at everybody when an interesting thing happens, like at a sports game, like the iconic picture of, I don't know who it was last year, LeBron James or something, shooting a game-winning shot, and you look up at the crowd, and everybody in the first 10 rows has their phones out, taking video. The future of that is everybody, if you're not at home watching the game in VR, you're physically there. You're watching it through a pair of glasses, and you're just capturing all of it real time.
Right.
So, like, when my young kids were born, I bought a pair of the first generation Snapchat spectacles. That have you tried those?
No, but I've heard.
They look super goofy, and all it does is it has a little camera right here that takes 30-second video. And so I bought them for playing with my kids, right? Because you got a newborn, you need both your hands.
Right.
And instead of having to set up a tripod and cameras, I'm 100% present, hanging out with my kid, but I'm just clicking right here. All right, boom. So now this is just the next generation of that. Is one way that I look at it. And so, back to your original question, I totally repositioned and spun the question in a direction that shined a positive light on the space. But I think that that's probably one of the biggest areas that our industry needs to overcome, is that it's not actually us disconnecting from the real world. It's a way for us to bring all these other input methods that we've developed and evolved into the normal human computer interaction. How do we layer that and allow us to be present?
Right. Yeah, that's going to be a challenge for sure, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people fighting the good fight, trying to make that happen. But like you said, social media can be used for good or for evil, I guess. Well,
also it's like people are like, I wouldn't pay whatever for this, and it's just, humans are while I love humans, generally speaking, we're a weird bunch, right? Like we're like, if you would have told anybody 20 years ago, everybody at the mall or your kid's soccer game is going to have a supercomputer in their pocket, they're going to be staring at it, and they paid $1,500 for it, you'd be like, no effing way.
Connected to, the entirety of human knowledge, right? In your pocket. Insane.
The whole, like, I'll show you some of the spatial video that it takes on there, and like the reliving memories is another area like I'm kind of obsessed with, where it's like nuts.
Yeah. That part is going to be crazy too. And Apple is pretty smart to lean into that stuff early.
Super smart.
Yeah. Any advice for people looking to get into this industry?
Cliche, but true, is you'd have to try. as many things as possible. We get a lot of people that reach out and say, hey, I want to get into the space. I want to do this, do that. I'm like, well, what have you done so far? What did you like? What didn't you like? And oftentimes, and it's an accessibility issue, right? But like, you can go make an appointment and go demo the Vision Pro at your local Apple store. So there is an accessibility thing, getting to an Apple store and having the time to do it. But if you can overcome that, you can go and try it. A headset is now $500, and there's a lot of really good free content on the headset. And you gotta try it and see what inspires you, what resonates with you. From there, I would say that everybody in our space that I know is very welcoming. Everybody, because it's a group, and now I'm kind of part of one generation in this space, and then there's the people that roll their eyes, that were there decades before us, right, kind of thing, like there is in most industries. But this latest wave since 2016, like we've been through it, right? I mean, there was a ton of investment going into our space in 2016, 17, 18. The world really started to slow down once the VC dollars stopped flowing and people realized there wasn't a distribution channel for this. And so people know each other. People are always trying to help each other, and the people who are still around have had to get scrappy and fight through it and be a good person. Yeah. Over the last decade, so people are awesome. So reach out to anybody in the space, and a lot of the developers that are building things on the Quest or even the Vision Pro, they're small teams. Yeah, they're really small teams. Yeah. And where I think that our world has suffered from has been I mean this in the most respectful way possible, but too many tech people and not enough like truly creative people, storytellers, visual artists, learning and development people. Right. And that's where I think there needs to be a lot of, like, think of any really good iPad app, right? It wasn't made just by an iOS developer. There was an entire team of people around them. Our world, because of small budgets, has been mostly tech people, I think, and that the tech has just needed to get to a certain level, right? Same goes for any innovation since the beginning of time.
Table stakes, yeah.
But as we get more and more non-tech people into the space, I think that's when the wheel will start to really spin.
Yeah, and hopefully developing on these platforms will be easier and easier, right? And I know both companies are doing what they can to support that. I don't know how difficult it is, but you were part of the Oculus launch fellowship, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, the 2020, I was part of their accelerator program called Launchpad, where they pick 100 people to go through kind of a 4-month process where they provide you resources, they give you a headset, you get access to other industry experts that have been through the program. You get access to people at Meta, go through kind of best practices, and they start to kind of bring you up to speed in a more formal way in the industry, and then ultimately submit a project at the end. And I don't know if they're doing that anymore, but I know they did it for 5-6 years, and it's a pretty, I still know a lot of people from that group, and cohorts before me, right, which is pretty cool. Good to kind of level set, especially being in the Midwest. Being in Minnesota. Yeah. Born and raised in Minnesota. Yeah. Love it here. Love it more if we had outdoor ice rinks, as we talked about earlier. But it's good to just connect with more people outside of Minnesota.
Totally. What they're doing. How has been kind of building this business in the Twin Cities been for you? I'm sure pluses and minuses, like pretty much anywhere. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, it's all I know. I don't have much else to compare it to. I would say that you got to kind of find your people. You gotta, like any other niche thing, whether you're into, I don't know, insert niche hobby here. You gotta find your crew, because there's a lot of awesome people in town. It's the other nice thing we have is we have a lot of big companies in town that, while their hierarchy is maybe hard to navigate, they do have the willingness and the time and energy and stated initiative to innovate. Which has been good from that respect.
Yeah, and they probably want to support local companies doing cool things as well. Yeah. Outside of tech in the AR/VR spatial space, any Any favorite tools or software or even books you use on a day-to-day basis that you feel like could use a little bit more attention, or I mean, that you'd like to share with people?
Tools, huh? Tools.
Like a favorite calendar app, or somebody said my notebook, right? Like,
I still use a lot of paper, a lot of pen and paper. I'd say one of my favorite apps is it's called Luma Labs.
it sounds familiar.
You can take video of an asset, so a headset, a microphone, a sculpture, and you can create a 3D model of it with AI. And so that's a fun one that, like in our world, one of the biggest limiting factors is content, because it's expensive and time consuming to create content. And we're now moving to a point with our powerful supercomputers in our pocket plus AI models, we can start to digitize a lot of assets really quickly, which is profound to me, at least. And so it used to be something that was super expensive, right? To go in, if the Smithsonian is digitizing all of their assets, like that's a major process.
Yeah.
Not that it's not major now, but now someone with an iPhone and a decent internet connection can rip off some pretty nice models.
Yeah.
Which is a ton of fun. So I leverage that a lot. Let's see. Outside of that, I spend so much time with the technology, and I spend a ton of time tinkering. So when I'm not, I'm probably just not using technology.
Yeah. Balance. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Do you see any future, for lack of a better term, collaboration with AI or metaverse or blockchain? You know, this whole kind of soup of differing technologies that have already gone through their own kind of hype cycle, but probably have some really strong use cases within, the VR AR space too.
Yeah, for sure. I think that kind of back to where we were talking a little bit earlier around Apple doing a good job of redefining this space. We have too many buzzwords right now, and it makes it really challenging to understand what the real value proposition of all this stuff is. And so that sucks. I don't have a perfect answer for it, but time is going to fix that. And so I kind of view these as like metaverse is just a word that we can throw away for now. Like I use that interchangeably with internet.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you have internet, you have metaverse is just this 3D digital point of connection.
Yep.
Nothing more, nothing less. That's not a company. It's not a piece of hardware. It's just like a philosophy, if you will. Web3, or the concept of decentralization and blockchain, I think that there is a lot of underlying value there as we move to a digital, more and more of our lives become digital. It's a way to reallocate the gatekeepers on who owns what data, which is really compelling and interesting. And it's not to own a picture of a whatever. A monkey. Yes. I wasn't going to say it. You did. You went there. But we needed to go through that process to build out infrastructure that could scale.
Yeah.
So in the future, everything's going to be Web3 and on the blockchain to a certain extent, but we're not going to talk about it. It's not going to be a thing. That's just like we don't talk about what protocol is happening when you go to xyzwebsite.com.
And it won't be an NFT. You just own this digital asset. And owning a picture of a monkey is probably still going to be cool, right? Like that was just the canary in the coal mine and went through its hype cycle and had its detractors, and I don't think that's going away.
Right, 100%. So that'll be there. It'll just be like when my mom is going to Starbucks and her rewards program is on the blockchain through NFTs, all she's going to care about is what rewards she get and that the app works on her phone.
Right.
Nothing else,
Yep.
right? But behind the scenes, it's like NFT, blockchain, Web3, blah, blah, blah. It's
Yeah,
okay,
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter to the average consumer. And we're not there yet on that tech. It's got a little ways to go. On the AI piece, that will be interwoven within literally every single thing that we do in our space, and to some extent already is. So like almost all of what we've been doing, at least, and I haven't even been in the space for a decade, but almost everything has a certain level of AI interwoven within it. All the way down to like a couple of years ago, we started using hand tracking.
Yep.
Because with our enterprise customers, it was way easier to not have more controllers to deal with. It's easier to get somebody up to speed real quick. I mean, those are all AI models that are allowing that. And so that's one example of the 1,000 of how we've already been using AI. The second is, I think we're going to look back and laugh at how, I mean, ChatGPT is magical and was a profound moment in human history, but the fact that we are typing and it's typing back to you is comical. And we're going to look at that the same way that we did with dial-up internet. And
Printing press.
100%. And so what I believe is that so augmented reality, virtual reality is going to be the primary modality in which you're communicating with AI. So for instance, back to the car example, I didn't type in the restaurant we were going to. I just said, hey Siri, we're going to Burger King in St. Paul.
Right.
And then it responds, which one? Gives me a list. I look at it, go like this, and then boom, my map pops up on the screen in front of me, heads up display. Right? Like that's AI, which most people have been interacting with for a long time now.
Yep.
It just wasn't, marketed necessarily as AI.
Yeah.
And that was my interaction. It was a spatial interaction with AI. Fast forward to, we were kind of joking around about like, iPads and the kids and whatnot. It's like my kids come downstairs in the morning and they ask Alexa to play music for them.
Yep.
I didn't teach them how to do that. That's what they do.
Yep.
And so it's just going to be a natural, organic, interwoven technology that we're not going to be talking about it as a thing. It's just going to be there, if that makes sense. So we just prototyped like an Albert Einstein in mixed reality, where you can put on that Quest 3 headset. I can put Albert Einstein right there in the room, and you can sit here and have a conversation with Albert Einstein. You can do the same thing with Steve Jobs. You can
input every book, every speech, everything they've ever done, and the AI will be able to respond to you. And at a certain point, that's going to be hyper real. So it's going to feel like you're having that conversation. That's crazy.
Totally.
But I'm excited to play around with it more. I was telling you before, I think, at least on the indie side of the film industry, it's kind of in a weird spot right now. I think the new indie film, with going back, indie film really kind of took off in the 90s and aughts because it was the democratization of information. Equipment costs kind of came down. There was distribution that allowed more risky storytellers to tell their stories. So it's kind of the timing of DVDs and VHS and all that kind of worked to our advantage. Now it's kind of become commoditized and you can only go on so many platforms. I kind of think the app and storytelling, within this new space might be the new indie film. And I'm really excited to see what the storytellers do with that, because we need these bolder, risky stories that can't all be, love Marvel, but they can't all be Marvel movies or movies made for, the widest audience possible, because that's what, puts money in the corporation's bank account. So yeah, I want to investigate it personally, but I want to encourage all the other storytellers too to start playing around with this, because it's coming, and I think you have to choose to either, get on the train or regret it later.
Totally. Or there'll be just a huge backlash against technology, and we'll have like the great tech destruction of 2030 and whatever. I'm fine either way.
I think there is I think there is going to be a backlash. I think there's going to be like techless retreats, right, where you have to show up and you can't bring any device whatsoever, and that's probably a healthy balance too. We should be doing that now, frankly. But
totally.
Yeah.
But there's also 100%. I mean, another funny moment that happened last Friday when I got the headset. So my wife's like not a tech person. She's actually like a yogi and does a lot of meditation and leads meditation and stuff like that, and put her in the mindfulness app on that, where you're sitting there and you're having you have this beautiful orb that's floating in front of you and helping you concentrate and let go and meditate, and was able to get her into a meditation state quicker. And she was like holy shit. Yesterday, we're watching the Super Bowl, or trying to watch the Super Bowl, and she actually asked, she's like, hey, can I do that thing on that goofy headset you got? And I'm just like, it was a pretty interesting moment for me personally, because she never asked for my stuff ever. So
Win.
But also like a good data point in that there are really powerful use cases for this outside of escaping, right? Like we got to just get beyond that preconceived notion of it's just for escaping, because it's so much more than that.
People want to find out more about REM5 or what you're up to. Where can they go?
Yeah, we have your typical social media channels. LinkedIn, I'm trying to get better about. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, then rem5studios.com is our website. That's not totally up to date, but we try to post up on our social channels that we're up to. Or don't be shy, just reach out. We love talking to people that are interesting, that want to learn more.
Let's have you back next year, maybe, and see where we're at then.
Let's do it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Fun discussion.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.